thank you all for being here. Thank you for joining us. It's a powerful, momentous day. It's an important day. Today, we are here to talk about AB 421. Now's the time where we talk about empowering California's voters. In recent years, we've seen some of the historic tools of our democracy subverted from their original intent and instead used to suppress the true will and voice of the people, used to mislead the voice of the people, often used to lie to the voice of the people in an effort to undo righteous policy changes that are rooted in opportunity, rooted in California's well-being. Right now, we're going to play a video of some of these examples of the blatant lies and the misusing of the referendum process specifically in the last couple of years.
Want to end oil and gas wells near schools, homes, and hospitals. Keep them aware.
Didn't they just pass that law to prohibit that?
No. Sure? Yeah, sure.
The name of the petition?
They're trying to raise minimum wage.
Okay.
Lower the gas prices. You get enough signatures to lower the gas prices, gasoline.
Raise minimum wage. Minimum wage? Yes, ma'am. What? So $22. Yes, ma'am. $22? Yes, ma'am. Oh, wow. An hour.
So are you guys volunteering or working?
We're working.
Who do you guys work with?
Basically just like the state of California.
As you can see, there are a lot of things wrong with this process. It's not just messed up, it's infuriating. For me, it's personal. SB 1137, which we passed out last year, I was the floor jockey here in the assembly. And the reason I was the floor jockey is because I represent the largest urban oil field in the country in the Baldwin Hills Inglewood oil field. The idea of putting health setbacks in has been a 3-decade journey with multiple attempts that couldn't clear the necessary legislative hurdles to become law. We passed that law last year. We set a precedent for our state that we value people's opportunity and well-being over profits. The neighborhoods near the oil wells, they die sooner. They have heart conditions at a higher rate. They have higher asthma rates. We had an oil spill a couple of years ago, over 400 barrels within 1,000 feet of a playground. And now we have paid signature gatherers who have put that into the referendum, and they have halted that bill for 2 years. And in that 2-year halt, the oil wells in my own district are already applying for new permits. It is outrageous. And that's just a single example. We have many, many examples. And with me today, I have a number of experts and organizers and people who are directly impacted with fighting for the people of California who have made some of these changes happen, that are having their righteous work undone by a small, concentrated, powerful set of stakeholders who do not have the collective's will at heart. First to speak with us today is Melissa Romero. She's the Senior Legislative Manager at California Enviro Voters. Melissa, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Assemblymember Bryan. Melissa Romero with California Environmental Voters. Big oil, big plastic, and other corporate polluters are undermining our democracy, and we're here today to say no more. We're going to change that. And the way we're going to do that is by reforming the referendum process to put the power back into voters' hands. Direct democracy tools like the referendum process were created to help communities break up corporations' stranglehold on power in California. But the opposite has actually been true in recent years. Mega corporations are abusing this tool to overturn laws that the environmental and environmental justice movement has fought for. And we are sick and tired of our lives and our future being the target. We're up against an industry that uses their unlimited dollars and straight up lies to win because their real arguments are that bad. In 2016, Big Plastic spent millions in an attempt to overturn California's single-use plastic bag ban. And now Big Oil is attempting to eliminate critical protections for communities impacted by oil drilling in neighborhoods. What started as a community-led policy solution a decade ago to stop oil drilling next to homes and schools became a statewide fight to end toxic oil drilling next to where people live and where kids go to school. After several attempts to pass state legislation, last year, SB 1137 finally passed and was signed into law. And it is absolutely shameful that the oil industry is trying to overturn what should be seen as a basic protection. If Big Oil gets their way, they plan to use their excessive profits to bankroll the overturning of a policy that's wildly popular amongst voters and which is meant to protect children and families in low-income communities and communities of color who are at higher risk of asthma, heart attacks, and shorter life expectancies associated with living next to active oil drilling. This is shameful of the oil industry, and frankly, we refuse to accept that our democracy should be controlled by corporations who don't care about marginalized communities or really anything besides their own bottom line. So it's time to truly empower California voters because we have no other choice but to act. AB 421 is going to prevent these abuses of the referendum process, like the outright lies that you just saw being told on people who were gathering signatures for the SB 1137 referendum. Big Oil and other corporations should have to tell the truth and should have to disclose the major funders behind these referendum efforts. And that means voters can discern whether a ballot measure is actually aligned with their values. AB 421 is also going to clear up the confusion in the referendum process, like this ever complicated process of what does a yes, what does a no vote mean, and overturning a community-backed, legislatively passed law, making that much simpler and easier to understand for people who are voting. So thank you so much, Assemblymember Bryan, for being a champion for these important reforms. California Environmental Voters is so proud to stand here in support of referendum reform with our friends and allies here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. You've made incredibly powerful points. It is shameful to use the people's messaging against the will of the people for an initiative that does the literal opposite of what you're saying it does. And to do it all through a paid signature gathering process. What this bill will also do is remove some of the paid signature gathering incentives and force actual volunteers, actual people who care about the issues to go out and convince other people to care about the issues the way the referendum and ballot process was intended. It's also going to close a training gap between ballot initiatives and referendum initiatives that they don't have training parity. We're going to raise that level of standard through the Secretary of State's office. This is really, really important work. It's not unsurprising that at a time when we have a historic high of Black legislators, Latino and Latinx legislators, women legislators, and LGBTQ plus parity, where working people's interests and the people of all of California are being reflected in the legislators' policies. It's being reflected in the governor's signature, and it's being subverted by a concentrated group of special interests that don't want to see a California where everybody thrives. That makes me excited to bring our next expert, Evelyn Barrias. She's a fast food worker and she's a worker leader in the Fight for 15. And we're grateful you're here with us, Evelyn. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Evelyn Barrias. I am a leader in Fight for 15 and the union campaign. I have worked in the fast food industry for over 21 years. I was very young when I started working for the fast food industry. I fought alongside with my fellow workers in the Fast Food Council so that 500,000 workers could have a seat at the table and more power on our jobs. I sacrificed my time with families and friends, time to rest and relax so that no other fast food worker or their families would have to endure on low wages, harassment, retaliation that I have. Winning the bill was amazing victory for all of us, but it was short-lived. Wealthy fast food corporations funded by campaigns that tricked voters into signing petitions that have put the fast food council we won through AB 257 on hold. And even myself wasn't safe from those lies. I did approach at one point Walmart, and there was a group of people that were signing off, and they asked me if I wanted to earn $22 an hour, and if I signed the paper that I was going to be able to earn $22 an hour. And I said, oh, cool, that sounds pretty cool, you know. But at the moment, I was going through so much stuff that I didn't think of what it was. So I signed it. But then I sat and I thought, I stood there and I said, well, hold up, there's something weird about this. And everything started coming back to me. And I asked the guy, so how are we going to win $22 an hour? And that's when he said, well, the governor just signed off for a council for you guys, but I don't think that you guys need a council. I mean, you guys are going to be spending a lot of money to, we are going to be spending a lot of money, and it's going to hire everything if this comes into place. I said, no, this is a lie. This is a lie, and I don't believe what you're trying to put out there, and you're lying. And I told him, you know, you guys, this is all BS. You guys don't even know what you guys are doing out here. And I was very upset about the whole situation. I scratched off my name and he asked me again. He's like, so what? What? So you're not going to sign it? I said, of course I'm not going to sign it. Why are you sitting here lying to everybody about, you know, what you're trying to do or what you're out here for? It's not true. And I left, and I felt very overwhelmed about the whole situation, you know, and I'm the last person they want to sit there and lie to about when I sat, even if inside the Capitol when we won, you know, and why we were out there. I camped out outside of the Capitol with my family, my kids, for them to just sit there and lie about the whole situation. So that was very upsetting for me. Nuevamente, soy Evelyn Varías. Estoy con Lucha por 15 y un sindicato. He estado trabajando por 21 años más en la industria de comida rápida. Hemos estado aquí luchando por mucho tiempo para que se lleve a cabo esta AB 257. Tristemente están habiendo muchas cosas que están contra de lo que hemos tanto peleado. Todos nuestros derechos nos quieren quitar, y estamos aquí para realmente poner nuestra voz en la mesa y que nosotros nos den la oportunidad de poder tener un concil para que nosotros tengamos una voz. No está bien que nos quieran quitar lo que tanto nosotros hemos luchado y que nos merecemos. Nosotros no deberíamos estar peleando por lo que nosotros merecemos. Incluso cuando fui a un día a Walmart, quisieron hacerme firmar un papel diciendo que yo iba a ganar $22 la hora, cuando no era cierto. Era eso para quitarnos la AB 257. Fue un engaño. Yo ahí mismo primero firmé, luego taché mi nombre y dije, no, esto es una vil mentira, ¿verdad? De que quisieron engañar y engañaron a mucha gente tristemente, por no saber las leyes, por no saber qué está detrás. Ellos escuchan y firman, you know, so esta es la manera que ellos engañan a la gente tristemente, pero pues que se unan con nosotros y sigamos peleando por lo que nosotros merecemos. After 21 years in the fast food industry, I've learned a simple truth. Corporations have too much power. For too long, they've controlled our workplaces and even the way our laws are passed. I'm proud to stand with everyone on this call today to make sure we put a check on their influence of our democracy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Evelyn. Incredibly powerful testimony, right? For me, this isn't corporate versus labor. To me, this is also the fundamentals of democracy. The idea that you could be signing away against your own best interests isn't because of any kind of negligence of your own. It's because the process has been intentionally been designed to be that confusing, to be that hard to understand. And when you are paying signature gatherers to lie to folks in a process that's already been designed to be confusing, you're going to hurt the will of the general public. And that's part of what we're going to remedy here. I believe in participatory democracy. I believe everybody should have a voice in their democracy. And I believe their true voice should be able to come through by knowing the information, knowing who's paying to fight against whatever interest, being clear on what a yes means, and having signature gatherers who care about the issues that they're advocating for and not just getting paid to collect signatures at any and all costs. Next, I want to bring another expert. She's the Vice President in Policy and External Affairs for California Calls, Veronica Carrizales.
Thank you. Thank you, Assemblymember Bryan. I'm here representing an alliance of community-based organizations who work in low-income communities of color throughout California in support of AB 421. This important legislation, like you said, puts a much-needed checks and balance to the referendum process. By placing the referendum on the ballot, fast food giants, big oil, and other large corporate interests are attempting to overturn landmark legislation that community groups and labor fought hard to win. They're attempting to take power away from Black and brown communities and to take power away from workers like Evelyn, who fought hard to win. To create a more equitable California, Black and brown communities have to build power every day. We do that person by person, door to door, phone to phone, reaching out to voters and doing the hard work. Organizations like mine are dedicated to ensuring that communities have a say in our democracy by turning people out to vote. Since 2009, we've spoken to nearly 5 million new and infrequent voters in California and helped to pass landmark laws that raise additional money for schools, improve our criminal justice system, and expand the right to vote to those that have been disenfranchised. That's what democracy looks like, right? It's everyday people, everyday Californians having a voice in the decisions that affect their lives and their children's future. Democracy is not about writing a big check. Democracy is not about trying to overturn current laws or overturning the laws that you don't like. In fact, that's exactly what tools in the initiative and referendum process were intended to prevent. When you have fast food corporations writing multi-million-dollar checks to overturn laws that helps low-wage workers have greater and better working conditions, it's clear that something's wrong with our referendum process. When you have signature gatherers paid by fast food corporations lying to get signatures saying this will raise wages when it actually does the opposite, we have to do something about that. And when you have oil companies trying to rip away progress in protecting Black and brown kids from asthma and lifetime health conditions, it's time for all of us to step up. We can't just let corporations keep stealing the power that Black and brown communities have worked so hard to build. The referendum process must not be about who can write the biggest check. A minimum threshold of volunteer signature gatherers is critical tool to ensuring the referendum is actually about direct democracy. Requiring disclosures of who's funding the petitions and requiring oversight of out of control signature gathering industry are necessary tools to keep the process accountable. So thank you, Assemblymember Bryan, for putting forward AB 421. California Calls and many community groups across the state are standing with you and will fight hard to support this legislation. It's time that we return the power to the people of California. Bueno, buenos días. Estoy aquí representando una alianza de organizaciones comunitarias que trabajan en comunidades de California, en apoyo de la propuesta AB 421. Al colocar el referéndum en la boleta electoral, las gigantes corporaciones de comida rápida, las grandes petroleras y otros grandes intereses corporativos intentan anular legislación histórica y quitarle el poder a las comunidades hispanas y afroamericanas y quitarle el poder a los trabajadores como Evelyn, que han luchado tan duro y tan fuerte para estas leyes. La democracia no es el hecho de escribir un cheque para crear tus propias leyes o anular las leyes que no te gustan. Cuando las corporaciones de comida rápida escriben cheques multimillonarios o usan tácticas engañosas para revocar una ley que ayuda a los trabajadores de bajos salarios a tener más voz en sus propias condiciones de trabajo, está claro que algo anda mal en nuestro sistema de referéndum. No podemos permitir que las corporaciones le roben el poder a nuestras comunidades. Por eso estoy aquí para apoyar la propuesta AB 421. Es hora de devolver el poder a la gente de California. Gracias.
Thank you, Veronica. And our last expert, amazing organizer, amazing leader, the executive director of SEIU California, Ms. Tia Orr.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. And thank you, Assemblymember Bryan and all of the advocates here for your efforts to put the powerful tool of the referendum back into the hands of voters. As Assemblymember Bryan said, my name is Tia Orr. I have the privilege of being the executive director of SEIU California, representing the political voice of 700,000 working people in the state of California. This includes caregivers, professors, janitors, social workers, healthcare workers, school employees, and so many more. You know, I approach this issue from the perspective of working people, from people like Evelyn, who you just heard from, and the mission of our unions. Working people come together in a union in order to have the power to change their working conditions and to have a strong voice in shaping our society. When workers are able to form unions, we make society more humane. We stop child labor, establish humane and sustainable work weeks, fight poverty by building critical safety net programs like Social Security and food assistance. That's what we do through the democratic process. That's our task. That's our goal. And that means that we are necessarily and deeply interested in the health and proper functioning of our democracy. The basic fundamental value that we have to all have is our democracy. California is a leader in this country when it comes to making sure that people can vote. SEIU and other unions have joined together over the years with good government groups, many of them here today, community allies and others, to build a democracy that truly opens the door to voting wide open. But as you've heard today, and the purpose of this bill that we're talking about is our democracy isn't perfect. Weaknesses in the design of our referendum process have allowed corporations to use their vast wealth to distort our democracy, essentially giving wealthy corporations a blank check to exploit workers like Evelyn, poison our children, and pollute our communities, which was the exact opposite intent of 1137 that Assemblymember Bryan spoke about how difficult that was to pass, but the legislator spoke and got that over the finish line. But I have faith in California voters, right? I believe that California voters, when they're armed with clear information and are protected from the predatory and deceptive tactics of corporations, voters will make good decisions if we're honest and we're truthful about what they're voting on. Our union, SEIU, fights many fights for working people in our communities, which largely are communities of color. We were active, as Evelyn indicated. She led the fight in this in passing AB 257 to protect people like Evelyn and her coworkers, fast food workers, and give them a say in their working conditions. And we helped push hard for 1137 to protect our families from the toxic effects of neighborhood oil drilling. We know that California voters, who are growing more diverse, as the Assembly member said at the start of this call, supportive of working people every year, support workers and support clean air and safe conditions. That's why it's scaring these corporations. That's why we're seeing the growing abuse of the referendum process, because they no longer have absolute control over the levers of power in Sacramento, because we are able to elect folks like our Assembly member here who are actually a true reflection of our communities. And they're scared. Let's be real, they're scared. And that's why they're participating in these tactics that overthrow the work that Evelyn did so aggressively on AB 257. We strongly support AB 421. We believe that it gives voters the information that they need to make good and well-informed decisions. It is the bill that proposes to bring the democracy back to the people. And when we empower California voters, we will empower progress for workers, for our environment, for our children, and for our health. So thank you, Assemblymember Bryan, for your leadership. Thank you, everybody on the call. And just thank you for allowing us to be here today. I'll turn it back over to you, Assemblymember.
Thank you, Tia. I think what you all have heard is that AB 421, it's not actually my bill. This is a bill that belongs to the millions of Californians who have historically been boxed out of places like Sacramento, right? Who haven't been able to concentrate the economic collectivity to impact a place like Sacramento. So they use their feet, they use their phones, they use their voice, they use their vote, and they use the truth to get a legislator that's responsive to all of California, one where everybody can thrive. And right now we're seeing all of that collective will, all of that organizing, all of that effort, all of that inclusivity undercut by a strong, concentrated set of stakeholders who have a specific financial interest in keeping California from being a place where everybody can thrive, no matter what community you come from, a place where every community can breathe clean air, can live to their full life expectancy, can earn a livable wage, can face the American dream and the opportunity that California has historically touted as what makes us special. It's time to return to what makes us special by fixing a process that no longer works the way it was designed to. We need to redesign it, and we're going to redesign it. The people are going to redesign it. And with that, we'll open it up to any questions.
Thank you, Assemblymember. This is Mike Roth. We are opening it up for media questions. If you have a question, you can type it in the chat or raise your hand. I see a first question from Sophia Austin with Associated Press. This is to Mr. Bryan or others. Tia, feel free to weigh in as well. Can you talk a bit more about what the training for petition circulators would look like?
Yeah, a little bit about that training. So the Secretary of State will design and administer a training program for petition circulators that includes training regarding the petition circulator registration requirements described in section 9027 and acts that constitute prohibited conduct for circulators. There's this gap between the petition circulator training for ballot measures and petition circulator training for initiatives, for referendums, I should say. This helps close that gap a little bit and make sure that people are fully aware of what they can and can't do and the need to register as a petition gatherer.
Great, thank you. Next question I see from Maya Miller with the Sacramento Bee.
Did you want me to unmute her? She asked it in the Q&A box.
She did ask it in the Q&A box.
She said, Assemblymember Bryan, could you speak to whether this bill would have to face the voters given that it alters the direct democracy process?
Speak why it wouldn't have to face the voters?
Whether it would.
No, it doesn't make any fundamental changes to the California Constitution, and therefore doesn't have to go to a statewide ballot measure of its own. We have fine-tuned features of our democracy many times throughout the years. This is one of those instances that I think is appropriate and timely and responsive to the needs of today.
Great. Next question from Jeremy White with Politico.
What's up, Jeremy?
Hey, Assemblyman. Thanks to all of you for talking to us today. So my first question is, obviously we have seen corporations go to the ballot with non-referendums like Prop 22. Why are you only extending these requirements to referendums and not to other ballot initiatives as well?
So check it out. We are extending it to other ballot initiatives as well. We have ballot initiatives that act like referendums, meaning they've been initiated for the sole purpose of undercutting a recently passed piece of legislation. This would set up conditions that wouldn't allow that to happen either if it was a law that's been passed recently in the last 2 years.
Got it. And then, it seems like a lot of this is the piece of sort of requiring some volunteer signature gatherers as well as the paid ones. Sort of a two-part question. How are you going to determine when a campaign turns in those signatures, which one is which? And also, given that the governor vetoed an effort to get rid of the paid signature gathering industry, how do you make the case to him, given that clearly there's some resistance to the idea of doing away with paid signature gathering?
Yeah, I think this is one of the rare times and one of the first times in Governor Newsom's administration where a specific piece of legislation that he was a leader on, he was an absolute champion on 1137. He told the legislature we needed to pass that bill, and we did, and we sent it to him, and he signed it. And the oil company spent something like $20 million to undo all of our collective work immediately and put the bill on hold. So he has an interest in getting this process right.